I am here with the man, Brandon Hernandez. Dude, thanks for getting on the show. I know you have a busy week, and you cut out some time for me.
A wonderfully busy week.
Yeah.
And I am thrilled to meet you. I mean,
Yeah, you too,
the article I'm writing about breweries to visit when you go to Major League Baseball spring training venues wouldn't be nearly as good if I hadn't to talk to you. I mean, I did
I appreciate that.
ask others who know what they're talking about, but really nobody knew as much as you and was just able to kind of, I don't know. I think we vibed a little bit when we first started communicating, and we just kind of come at things from the same place. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it made it real easy that you understood what I was trying to accomplish too.
Yeah.
So I mean, trying to plan an itinerary around here, there's just so many places, you know.
Yeah.
And a stranger in a strange land, you need help. And
Sure.
so thank you for being my beer Sherpa, I guess.
Absolutely, man. I like that name, Beer Sherpa.
Oh, TM.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to hold off on releasing this until you get that trademark submitted and stuff.
That's fair. First use.
Yeah, but no, man. I was really excited when here's the funny thing. I'm a big believer in things happen and things align, and you align with people for a reason. I woke up in the middle of the night, I woke up, couldn't sleep. It was like 1 a.m, and a thing I always tell myself: don't go on your phone. Don't go on your phone. For some reason, I went on Facebook, and then there was a group, and you would ask like, "Hey, come to Arizona. What places are you?" What should I check? I can't remember exactly the details.
It's pretty much like, what are you excited about? Where should I not miss?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. And then I reached out to you. I think I was able to fall back asleep.
And 50 suggestions later.
I did.
We really culled it down.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you didn't just suggest them. You had reasons why, which is always the key. I mean, a lot of people can just say, oh, you got to go to this place, and this place, and this place, and this place. Well, why? Oh, the beer's good. Yeah. Well, and feel free to expound on that.
Yeah.
But you right off the bat, and it was just kind of notes that I give to people when they come to San Diego. That is one of the best things about what I do, is that I get to share what I've learned over decades in my hometown that I've spent 46 years in.
Yeah.
With people who just will send me a cold email from my website. They'll just say, "Hey, I'm coming to San Diego. Any chance you could tell me where to go? I'll be like, where are you staying? What kind of beers do you like?"
Yeah.
And we're busy people, but I always have time for that. I love that. And it's just knowing that somebody's going to get some pleasure out of it. And so you kind of did me that solid back. And I'll keep paying that forward.
Nice, man. I appreciate that. Well, I plan on coming to San Diego soon. So.
Oh, great. Perfect. Like HomebrewCon or something like that?
I don't know. Last time I was there, I went to the Harland at Bay Park. I don't know if you've been to that one recently, but the food truck outside of that, Rosemary's Burgers. Have you ever had Rosemary's?
I haven't had it, but I know of it.
Well, Nick is originally from Phoenix, and during COVID, so he had a food truck called Strata that was out in San Diego, and then when the pandemic hit, he came back home and brought his food trucks here. So we actually set up here a lot at Simple Machine.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so him and I connected, and we just became really good friends. And he kept, then he moved back out to San Diego, and he was like, "Man, you got to come out. You got to come out. I'm outside of the Harlan." Really
it's a good location too.
Awesome location. Yeah. That's just a beautiful place. And actually, it was cool because he set me up with Anthony, one of the owners, who's actually one of the owners of Scout as well, Scout Distribution.
Know him well.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah, really great guy. And they're brewer too. I can't remember the brewer's name. I meet so many people, and I'm not great with names.
Probably Nick.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah,
for sure.
Dark-haired guy, right? Yeah. So it was just great time. So that was the last time I was there, and then Nick from Rosemary's Food Truck took me some places, but we might be coming out this summer. When I bring the wife and my 2 daughters to vacations, I have a little bit of a beer agenda to it, but I'm also like, okay, maybe just a couple.
There's only a certain percentage, right?
Yeah.
Where it doesn't become not fun for the rest of the
for
crowd,
sure,
right?
Yeah, and they dig it. They dig the vibe of breweries. They don't like brew days. They're like, oh, it stinks in here. I'm like, that smells wonderful. That's like the best smell in the world, you know. But I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I come.
Absolutely, I would be mad if you didn't.
Yeah. So, all right. So you were born and raised in San Diego?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I was actually born in West Germany, which is now just Germany.
Okay.
But 2 months later, I was back home to San Diego, where my mother and father are natives. So, Yeah, I'm a local yokel.
Okay. Okay. And what was it like? What was Brandon the kid like? Were you
A nerd.
that's a common thread in craft beer.
Yeah.
I've noticed. That's not a bad thing.
I was somebody who could get really passionate and obsessive about certain things.
Okay.
Very completionist nature. I mean, from things like Transformers and GI Joe, all the way up to like boogie boarding or any activity or video games. My God, I mean, like Nintendo. Jeez, those were the days. It's probably good that I weaned myself off of that. Of course, I went to Beer Research Institute this week and I had to take a half hour out just to play some of the classic games. It was so much fun
at the tap room in Mesa, like the arcade.
Yeah, I went to both. I actually started out down at the the OG location, and then he took me up to the arcade real quick because I was going to Oro Brew, and he's like, "I'll give you a ride."
Nice,
And
Matt.
he gave me some.
Awesome.
So he gave me some tokens. He's like, "If you got time." And thanks to some mishaps with the old Uber, I did have some time, and I hit 150,000 on the Miss Pac-Man. I was rocking it.
Nice.
But yeah, so things like that. I would always fall deep down rabbit holes, even when I was a kid. And as I became interested in things like reading and writing. Sadly, not until I was about 16.
Okay.
I mean, like I read my first book for pleasure, I think, when I was 16 years old.
Okay. Other than that, it was just kind of a nuisance to have to read.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And therefore, I had no interest in writing.
Yeah.
But once I read like 2 books, I thought, words are kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can communicate a lot of things with these. So, I started doing that for fun with fictional, and so that was one of my many obsessions through life. But
Is reading?
Writing.
Oh, writing. Okay.
I read too slow, so I'm not really obsessed with reading.
Okay.
I can barely read my own stuff, but I do love to write. I just something about the art of communication, or just not even the art, just the act of communication and sharing things. That's what I like about sharing beer news, is that I get to be kind of somebody that everybody can look to and then get useful information.
Yeah.
There's nothing like sharing that and somebody saying, "Wow, that was really helpful what you wrote." I said, "Oh, good," because in real life I'm not that helpful. Ask my wife.
But you put that into words, and suddenly Brandon becomes helpful.
There
Is that
you
right?
go.
Put it on the paper. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other side of me. It's great.
Well, what did you write about? Like when you were younger and you started to write, like what were you writing about?
So I was writing horror novel type stuff.
Okay.
I was really interested in like Stephen King and Dean Koontz and people like that.
Okay.
And so that got me into it. I mean, I wasn't really somebody who wanted to be like this AP style reporter. I didn't want to join the high school newspaper.
Okay.
I wrote for it once.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Your stories were too scary for them.
Right. No, I wrote some review of I wrote a review of Nirvana's In Utero album, and
nice.
I wrote it as an assignment, and somebody thought it was good enough that they threw it in the paper one day, and I said, "Hey, I didn't say you could do that, but thanks, it's really good. Best thing I've seen in the paper all week." But no, I wanted to be a fiction writer, and so I did that for fun for years and years. I mean, during the pandemic, I wrote 2 books because I had time.
Yeah.
I had time, and that was what I'd always wanted. And so I've got manuscripts. If I ever get any free time, I might shop them around. You never know.
Nice. Heck yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I started out on.
Yeah. And what about like after like college? Like, did you go to college? Did you have a career path? Like, where did you want to?
I skipped college. I was, at the time I didn't know it, but I was lucky enough to have a son at the age of 18.
Okay.
So that got me into the blue collar world of white collar work.
Okay.
As I put it, and got me going, and actually ended up creating opportunities through being, recruited into a marketing department to start using words in a way that was persuasive and interesting.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it, and my entire background now for over 25 years of being a professional is in marketing, communications, and PR, things like that. So that started me down a path. But so that's how I got into doing it. There was no college. There was only kind of like the School of Hard Knocks, but it was the best for me. I kind of needed a kick.
Yeah.
A guy who hasn't read his first book for pleasure until 16 probably needs a kick in the ass. You know what I mean?
You got that
and
kick in the ass, yeah.
Yeah. So everything worked out great because I had my son. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy about that.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that, like I said, things. I'm a big believer. Things happen for a reason. You were
Yep.
put on certain paths, and my massive student loan debt that I accrued took me 15 years to complete my degree. There was that path for me. Of yeah.
No wonder you drink beer.
Exactly. It's the best. It's the best way to deal with it for sure. Well, so when did beer come into the picture? Like when you were younger, did you drink? Did you drink beer? Were you a beer drinker at all?
Get this. It's very much like that reading for pleasure.
Yeah.
I never was really had this draw to drink alcohol.
Okay.
So I had my first drink when I was 22 years old.
Okay.
I don't know what took me so long. Maybe I just saw it as something that people were doing recreationally, and I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, I'm having fun already. I didn't really need anything.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
like, I don't need beer to have fun or something like the annoying people.
Yeah.
But no, one night I just was out with my friends, and we were at a brew pub, and I said, you know what? I think we can get something to drink. They were like, what?
We've been trying to get you to do that for years.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't really particularly like it.
Okay.
And,
Remember what you
the
had?
beer wasn't very good. Yeah, it was a red.
Okay.
It was an Irish red.
Yeah.
But my first real beer, where I actually had like a beer, and because I wanted to go and hang with friends, was at a place called O'Brien's Pub in San Diego. Really, it's the longest running craft beer bar in San Diego now.
Oh, nice.
Really great place. My friends took me out, and I said, I don't really drink beer, guys, but I want to hang with you. They're like, okay, great. Well, come on over. It'll be great. Sit down with them. There's 5 of us. They go around the table and say, what do you want? Everyone's like, Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. And my friend says, arrogant bastard. And I'm trying to think of any beer I've ever seen on TV that sounds like the fanciest one. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, do you have Heineken? They said, no, God, no. No. He'll have a Bigfoot. And so I did. And I said, they bring these all in, and I'm like, this doesn't look like beer. He said, yeah, but try it. And I tried it. I was like, is this what beer tastes like? Because, like it's supposed to be yellow and it's supposed to be other things.
Yeah.
It's much like when I had the initial one, and I didn't really care for it. But I didn't really care for this either, but I felt really good in about 4 sips because it was 10% or whatever.
What is a Bigfoot? That sounds, because I'm thinking
Oh,
Yeti.
Sierra Nevada barley wine.
Okay.
Their annual
Yeah.
barley wine.
Yeah.
And I mean, this came in a 12-ounce pint.
Yeah.
It was rad. And after that, I said, I'll try that arrogant bastard thing he's trying. And again, I was like, I don't know if this is really for me, but I'm having a really good time.
Yeah.
And I've gone back there a million times. I love that place. And it's nostalgic, but new memories get made all the time. And so that's how I got into. Oh, and when I found out when I found out the Arrogant Bastard was made locally, I said,
Okay.
oh, there's breweries in San Diego? And at the time, there really weren't that many.
Okay.
But,
And this is what, like late 90s?
so this was 1998.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 1998. And I eventually came to drink my friends' home brews, get whatever kind of craft beer you can find, like Red Hook and Pyramid, things like that. And kept an eye on Stone, and then got to try things like Ballast Point, AleSmith, and all that. And I got into writing in 2007. Started professionally writing for newspapers, magazines back home, things like that. And very early on, I wrote about food, so I was a food writer.
Okay, nice.
Culinary, food, restaurants, things like that. And I realized that nobody else was writing about local beer. So I pitched it to my editor and said, hey, what if I did a roundup of all the local breweries? He says, oh, are there enough? I said, oh, my God, there's so many of them. There's like 18. And at that time in 2007, it was pretty astounding that there was that many, right?
There was only 18 in 07 in the San Diego area.
Around there, yeah. And now we have roughly 150 operating brew houses and over 200 venues throughout the county. Same county size.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of got to know everybody. He says, you can write it if you want. I said, all right, great. And it was really fun. And I really started to dive deep once I met, I'm sure you experience this all the time. You meet somebody behind the business, or the brewer, owner, whoever it might be, and then all of a sudden there's a link and you care and you hear what got them into it.
Yeah.
And so with that roundup, I really got to know a lot of, it was the foundation of my relationship with all these brewers and owners. and I was just more compelled to go out and learn more about their business, try more of their beer, and I did, and it's just become that obsession took over, and it became my entire career and a lot of my life.
Yeah. Was there certain things that because I know there are certain things about that I really connected with craft beer. I mean, obviously going into a place and it's got a cool vibe to it and
Uh-huh.
it's different. Obviously the beer tastes different than what we're used to, but I know I have my certain reasons why I connected with breweries. For you, what were there certain things that really stood out to you?
Well, as I got used to beer, I of course started to appreciate the flavor and
Yeah.
all the different styles. I was pretty fascinated by all the different styles, and as I learned more and more about them, started reading books about the origins of certain styles, and it's so vast. And I was
Yeah.
always impressed by the fact that you can keep learning. Even brewers, like I'm learning every day,
Yeah.
and so if you keep peeling back that onion, you keep getting rewards, and it's really fun. Now, I think part of me also, when I was growing up, I was all into alternative music and
Okay.
alternative this and alternative that. All of the teams that I like aren't are like underdog teams. I
Okay.
mean, I'm just that guy. My
Yeah.
favorite color is orange. I
Mine
mean,
too.
oh,
Heck
really?
yeah, dude. Yes.
Well, now it's too popular. I got
I
to change.
know.
I like lilac now. But I think that that really spoke to me.
Yeah.
The thing of like when grunge came out, and I was really into it. I went to a school where most people weren't into that kind of music at all.
Yeah.
And so I was a black sheep, but I knew I was in on something really cool, at least in my mind. And I felt good about myself for being in on it and being able to recognize how good it was. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's how I felt about craft beer too,
I like
and
that.
local craft beer. I know it's good. People are like, why are you spending so much money on that? What's the
Yeah.
big deal about that? It's like, well, I understand. I'm happy to tell you if you want to learn. But as it became more popular, sometimes I'll admit that I'm like, I guess when it was just us people who got it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
sure.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, geez.
No,
And then
every bro in the corner is gonna like, dude.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that was a big part of my psychological makeup
Yeah.
that made me really get into it and stay with it. I still find it infinitely fascinating.
Yeah.
And
I was
love
gonna
meeting
say
people.
the stuff like that it's lesser known, right? So if like me, I'm very curious and I want to dig deeper, right?
Yeah.
If there's a whole book about it already, I'm just kind of like, it's already there. Where if it's like there's mystery to it, right? You're like, oh, dude, I'm gonna want to figure this out, and
Yeah.
and it could put you on this journey of discovery, right?
Yeah. Well, then next thing you know, much like you, I ended up writing the book on San Diego beer. Like I have 2 editions of a guide that came out years ago, but it's then you're really on the forefront and you're communicating the information to people, and I don't know, it's something special about that. Take something you love so much and get to do what you're doing or the things that I'm doing. It's, who knew? Who knew when I had that Bigfoot?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it felt good, right? Because it's a barley wine, so it's going to make you feel good,
Yeah.
especially after for it being your first beer. But for it to lead into that's really cool. And one thing that I really connected with craft beer was it's the intersection of blue collar. I grew up outside of Youngstown, Ohio, old Steel City, so like blue collar through and through. But then I've always been very creative. I always had this creative drive. So it's the intersection
get
of the
that.
two of those, right? Yeah,
I do.
I do. Yeah, you as well. Creative person. But that it's the intersection of like you've got this great idea. This is gonna be really cool can art. This is gonna be a really great beer. But then you got to put the work into it, right? Then you have to get back here in the brew house, sweat your ass off.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are back here when it's 115 degrees outside in Phoenix, and I mean, you can cool it down to a certain point, but
Right.
that's when you get a real test of somebody. So all right. So when you started in this, obviously there was not the number of breweries, but like 10% of what there is now, right, in San Diego.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So you were there kind of at the starting point. We look at as I grew up in Ohio, like I said. I moved here in '07, but I've always looked at like Denver and San Diego as those meccas, right? So what were some of the things that happened over the years that you saw that you kind of eye-opening, like, holy shit, man, like this is a big deal.
Well, just rapid expansion that occurred at a certain point. And there have been certain points in San Diego County's lifespan where all of a sudden you just see spurts from the craft beer industry, and we've been fortunate that we haven't had in our region a lot of the fallout, because craft beer is cyclical, and it always
Yeah.
has been. You see a bunch of people get going, it gets momentum, and then boom, there's a big fall.
Yeah.
It does it again, there's a big fall. I don't know. Like, we're I wouldn't say a fall, but there's definitely more challenges than ever before now.
Sure.
But back when there was 18, I remember like maybe a couple breweries, several breweries would open up per year. But then, as momentum was gained, as people took notice of these things, thanks to journalists putting it out there finally. No, it wasn't me. But and thanks to innovators like, for instance, Stone Brewing. I always credit Stone Brewing as being probably the most innovative in San Diego from a standpoint of being able to get the spotlight shined on San
Sure.
Diego, because there could have been 40 breweries, but if no one's going to do something kind of audacious to really get one like get journalists to look in that direction and therefore put their cameras in that direction,
Yeah.
then everybody can just be in relative obscurity, especially in a place as big as San Diego. But
Yeah.
not only did they make things like Arrogant Bastard Ale and push hops through the stratosphere at the time, but they started a distribution company that allowed the likes of AleSmith and other companies to finally get distribution because Stone couldn't get into grocery stores
Yeah.
and outlets like that, and they knew that other people couldn't too. So they went ahead and formed that distribution company to get themselves in, and said, you know what, let's just bring everybody in too. It'll help us, it'll help them, and it'll be great. And it really was the foundation of San Diego's rising tide.
Yeah.
We all talk about it. You're experiencing it here right now,
For
which
sure.
is wonderful. That's been the best thing I've seen since I've gotten to Arizona, is just talking to people and just seeing how interconnected everybody is and how they're all in it for each other for the most part.
Yeah.
Really, really, really cool. And I think it will benefit you guys as much as it did us. But people were helping new breweries come aboard, and that's not just Stone, but everybody. You could ask questions of brewers, and this was way back when there was no culture already in place for that.
Okay.
You hear people like, oh yeah, everybody in Arizona, you go to these people and they'll help you out. None of that existed yet, so they had to forge that, and then they did, and everybody paid it forward, helped people up, and next thing you know, like 2012 was a big year for us. We had a gymongous, that's a real word now,
Yeah.
number of brewery openings, and the next year was kind of the same, and for several years we had tremendous growth, and tons of breweries that went on to be pretty big, Society, Modern Times, places like that, all opened in that span and became like the next generation. But so you've got these two generations of really great breweries, the old guard and the now what would almost be considered old guard at 10 years plus old.
Yeah.
Just
Mid-card.
carrying on all the traditions. So as we saw people banding together, collaboration beers, big beer festivals, San Diego Brewers Guild would put on, and that's when my eyes started opening more to be like, whoa, this could be a real thing. And then it became a real thing, and it
Yeah.
just keeps growing and growing. Even through these COVID years, we had more openings and closings in all these weird years, and people are still getting into the game. It's just on a smaller scale, but
Sure.
yeah, there's a, and then of course, I would say the improvement in beer overall, because
Yeah.
when I first got into it, 2007, it was really hit and miss.
Yeah.
And even the places who made good beer still had clunkers. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've watched the likes of, this is not to say any of these places I'm going to say are bad,
Yeah.
because they weren't, not at all. But the likes of Karl Strauss, I used to go to Karl Strauss, and they would do a flight, and almost every beer was this exact same color. We're talking like same SRM number and
Yeah.
everything. And they just called it a different style, and there were slight differences in the beers, but not really. Now you go, oh my God, they brew so well to style, and everything is completely different. There's nothing like that anymore. And Stone used to be a one-trick pony. Now they've got other things. Ballast Point has grown on leaps and bounds and done all the things they've done. They've got their own saga and all, but man, the beer quality it's completely undeniable. AleSmith, they were always good. But no, there's just so much. There's so much improvement that's been made, and so many tips that have been shared, that most of the new breweries that open now have great beer out of the gate across the board, and it's only because of the camaraderie and the interaction, sharing of thoughts and techniques and things like that. It's just it's really something. And as I saw that come about, I was like, oh man, this is unstoppable because now there's no barrier when there's no bad beer,
Sure.
and there's almost no bad beer in San Diego.
Yeah, that's
Here too.
awesome.
I've been so impressed by the way.
Yeah, yeah. That was one thing that I had a buddy who, and this is when I hadn't gotten out too much outside the state, as far as craft beer goes, and he came back from Denver. I'm like, dude, is Denver like everybody talks about? He's like, dude, Denver is fantastic. He's like, here's the difference. So he's like, our best versus their best, they're head to head. There's not much, that we're right there. But the thing is, this was probably 3-4 years ago. He's like,
Okay.
every beer on their tap list is excellent. But in Arizona, you've got maybe 2-3 good beers, and then maybe 2 or 3 not great beers. Right now we've risen up, and now, in my opinion, that wave of just because you're opening a brewery doesn't mean you're going to be successful just based off the hype of a brewery, right? You got to bring your A game, and I think that's what I get when you're talking about San Diego is you have to come out of the gates with every beer being good, right? Because there are so many options that the game has risen, so you
Yeah.
better be up to the challenge.
Yeah, although I will say it's kind of an interesting phenomenon we have going on right now is that, like I was saying, the new entrants are very small. They're nanos and neighborhood-focused breweries where they're not looking to ever grow,
Sure.
per se.
Yeah.
And so if you open in a small community where there's not a lot of competition, we're getting back to a place where you can have bad beer again.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm starting to see just a little bit here and there where it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel like I'm going back in time.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily a good thing.
That's interesting.
However, everyone gets better over time. And like I said, these places are new. So I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that they just fine-tune things like everybody else does and everyone has the right to do. So
Yeah.
I'm looking for that. But that is the one thing I'll say that about this sizing down of the industry and everyone saying I don't need to be the next the next company that's distributed in 50 states.
Yeah.
Well, there's something between that and being the neighborhood brewery. The neighborhood brewery should be better, if you
Sure.
ask me,
Yeah.
because you're in control of everything, and there's plenty of people to ask for help. So I really hope that happens. I don't know if you see that with smaller operations here, but
Yeah, a little bit, especially in I guess you can say the outskirts, like not so much in the metro area per se. As you get a little bit further out,
lower rent.
Yeah, well, places that are just there's not many other options that are around them, right? Like
Gotcha.
here, we've got Front Porch right up the road. We've got Lake Pleasant over here,
Yep.
and then you get down to so. But as you kind of get out a little bit further, it's it's the neighborhood spot, right?
Yep.
And so people are like, this is great. This is where we come. This is what's close to us. So you can be a little bit more forgiving, and like it's not the best, but it's 5 minutes from the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, hey, let me take a break real quick. All right, so we're back. We were just kind of chatting offline here, and it was funny because Brandon, you were saying, your day job, and a lot of times in this type of work, when people say they've got a day job, it's like, oh yeah, I work for the city as a city engineer.
Right.
So I asked you, you mentioned your day job a couple times, and I'm like, well, what's your day job? And you're like, well, San Diego Beer News. I'm like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
So this is
It just seems like a side job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I had journalism as a second career for over 12 years.
when you were doing like marketing and PR type of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like I worked for breweries for 7 years. I was over at Stone, AleSmith, and Society back home.
For
and-
marketing and PR.
Correct.
Okay, so you were
Yeah.
still in the beer industry, but just doing a different type of work.
Right. And so all the journalism I did was supplementary to that. And before that, I had marketing for a plethora of companies and all sorts of things. Marketing is very transferable.
Yeah.
But I was putting in like 50 hours a week at those jobs and then doing 30 to 40 hours on journalism because I really, at one time, I contributed to 12 magazines at a time
Okay.
on a constant basis.
All
So
across the country, magazines all across the country.
yeah, I had some
Okay.
nationals, but I almost had like every magazine in San Diego as well. There's only
Nice.
like 2 I haven't written for.
Yeah.
Or, like 1 magazine and 2 local, like smaller level papers.
Okay.
So that was really tough. But yeah, now the pandemic took me off of being a freelancer for everybody else and gave me the push I needed to finally implement something my backup plan. I said,
Okay.
you never know when things could just go to hell.
Sure.
And my
You brought this whole thing on us, huh? Now.
well, my wife told me in 2019. She says, "Hey, this is way too much work for you to be doing every single week for 12 years. Okay,
Yeah.
you can't work 80 hours a week. It's degrading you. Okay, it's
Yeah.
like you're getting old fast. I used to look so young. You don't understand it.
You still look good. You're 2 years older than me. You look good, man.
God bless you. Yeah, we're both 20. So you're 27. I'm 29. Great.
Exactly. Yep.
But so she said, "Hey, I looked at the numbers, and you've saved enough, and you have all the retirement that you need. You could just do one. So why don't you pick? Do you want to write, or do you want to do the other job?" And I said, "Well, I'd rather write. I just never thought it could really be a thing." And she said, "Well, it can be." I said, "Okay, great." And her math, I penciled out. Okay, great. So I retired from my day job at the time in November of 2019.
Okay.
And I was thinking, okay, I do realize I'm walking more of a tightrope than I was before. So I need to have a backup plan. I thought, well, if anything goes south with any of my publications, I could always do this for myself. I said, but I would never do a print publication. No offense.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I've seen how that works back where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I just, all the startup it would take for that and all of the expenditure of money for the print product. When quite frankly, for what I do, it's more of a niche thing that you find on the internet, and that's how people are taking their news today, on a phone, on a laptop, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, I could do a website. I know I have friends who are web developers, things like that. And I said, what would it look like? What would it be? San Diego Beer News. So I trademarked that, and I just kind of sketched out what it would look like, maybe like basically. I said, okay, if it comes down to it, I can always make this my backup plan. Give that a whirl. It doesn't work out, I'll go back to work. Put it in a drawer, forgot about it for about 3 months, 4 months. And then the pandemic happened. The main publication I freelanced for, it was called West Coaster. It was almost 10-year-old beer publication in town, print, really cool. Immediately, they're like, "Oh, we're out. And
Dang.
we're done," because they were already struggling, I think, financially
Sure.
already, as it was. And that was one of the reasons I was probably thinking maybe I should do a website. So I was like, damn. But they said, well, we'll probably be back, so just hold tight for a little bit, and when this whole thing blows over, we'll be able to get advertisers again and do all this kind of stuff. 3 months in, I'm like, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I get in touch with my friend who's a web developer, and he says, "Oh, I think we could make you a great website. We can have it done in like 2 weeks. You have a logo?" I said, "No." So I got in touch with my friend who does that kind of thing, and that was done in about 24 hours. And as they were developing the website, I was still getting news from breweries, but they had nowhere to put it. And I said, well, you know what? I'll just make a San Diego Beer News page on Facebook, and I'll use my Instagram account, which was already SD Beer News. Twitter was already SD Beer News, and we'll put it there. So I was writing full form articles, like full length articles with all this breaking news, and people were like, "Oh, this is cool." And I just brought all that traffic over to my website. All the people who'd been following me for years and years, anyway.
Yeah.
So I had a built-in audience. It worked out great. But
So you had developed a reputation for yourself by this point, anyways, right?
Yeah.
You were embedded in
Yeah.
in the industry.
I think that one of the good things is that brewers knows they can trust me. Brewery owners, they can trust me. I'm not out to get them, do anything like that. And I'm as much a resource for them as the people who are reading my news, who want to know about the breweries. So I like that. Double-sided nature
Sure.
of San Diego Beer News. And so, anyways, that's how it started, and it just took off immediately. And I keep pushing myself to do fun features and things like that, things that are like way out of just reporting news or being a basic blog.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with those, but I feel like I'm a full-fledged resource and outlet and business. So I really want to see how far I can take it. So I keep pushing myself, like a travel section for San Diego Beer News. Maybe somebody wouldn't have thought of that, but it's been really, people have received it very well. And, thank God, now I know where to go when I go to, Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because I know nobody knows about the scene that hardly anybody knows about the scene back home that's
Yeah.
happening here, but I'm glad that they will now.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's very cool.
I dig that. I dig that, right? Because, I mean, there's only so many ways that you can write, oh, this is a perfect blend of Mosaic and Citra hops and, and it has a fruit burst and, like there's,
Oh, yeah.
so I love the, we're storytellers, like, with our magazine. I wouldn't say we're not so much into the news as far as like, we have a feature in this latest issue about, newest, restaurants, right? Some of the newer hot restaurants, but it's more kind of the story behind them. So I like that aspect of it, but then in addition to it, the news, like you were saying, I don't think we hit record quite yet, but you were saying you're here doing this story, and then there was breaking news yesterday that you had to work through the night to get out. So so you're getting those things out that are there are time sensitive type of things, right? And they're
the news doesn't stop. That's the one thing about having a news site. I mean, if I did have maybe a blog that was more of like your standard beer blog where it's more about like I had this beer and it tastes like this, or this beer's coming out, that would be really easy to just make for a regular easygoing life. But when you're in news, for me, it's kind of like when you're in public relations. It's not really a job. It's a lifestyle, or it's a life, because you can't turn it off at any point.
Sure.
With PR, it was, your client, whoever you're working with, needs this now, or a reporter gets in touch with you, and could be 9 p.m. Who knows? Or it could be Saturday. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what you're going for, is to get that coverage, and you've got to help them out however you can, and bend over backwards. With the news, like it's only I always tell people, they call it the news because it's new.
Yeah.
If you're reporting news days and days and days and days later, sure, you can do it, but I think it's pretty lame. It's like I'm trying to keep people updated.
Yeah.
And so to have that devotion, it requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of dedication, but doesn't mean it's not a bummer when I'm up, at the hotel and doing this kind of stuff. But I think people think I have the best job in the world, and I probably do, but it's still pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, this news cycle never stops, man.
No. Well, and that's the thing too is, I get the same thing, like, oh, dude, your job's the best. They see the magazine and they see all these pictures, like that food looks awesome, that burger looks great. I'm like, well, first of all, my business partner Luke's the photographer, so I didn't even get to go to that place, right? I'm responsible for getting the advertisements for it, and this and that, but that's what makes it. My wife always tells me this when I'm getting stressed out. She's like, hey, if it was easy, she's like, there'd be so many people before you doing this, So those are the type of things that dedication, and you having to stay up late, even though you're kind of on a, little vacation, quote unquote.
Oh, yeah. Everyone thinks these are vacations. It's so funny. It's like, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Why don't you go to Phoenix and interview 20 people in 5 days, and you tell me how much of a vacation you had.
Well, setting it up. Like, I remember, you and I communicating, setting it up, but like, even trying to help you with people I have these personal relationships with, of trying to help you set up with interviews and stuff in your itinerary. I'm like, dude, that alone is that's work.
And I couldn't have done it without you. Once more,
Hey,
I could have done a worse job.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, like, I can't even imagine if I hadn't had your help. It was outstanding.
Happy to help. Now, you guys did a podcast at one point too. Did you have a San Diego Beer News podcast?
No, I was part of a podcast called the Indie Beer Show.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It
Okay.
was super fun, but it was its own property.
Okay, gotcha.
But it was fun. We would interview people every 2 weeks. We got to interview just about, almost everybody in San Diego. But then we also did folks like Vinny Chilurzo and the folks over at Bierstadt in Denver, and we pulled some interesting folks in there, and really enjoyed just talking about beer with people who it was kind of cool, because the people we were interviewing were typically brewery owners, brewers, or folks who were involved in sales or the tasting room, interfacing with people, and just deep into their work. And me having worked at breweries, and other people having spent other co-hosts having spent so much time around them, they really appreciated the angle we come at them with, when that we actually understood their lives a little bit and could ask them questions, versus like, why do you like Cascade hops?
Sure. Yeah. What are you doing? Somebody comes
Yo,
in
Ken
and they're
Grossman,
jerk.
why do you like those Cascade hops so much? So we always had a good time, and I think that we were able to disarm the people a lot, so they ended up having a pretty good time too. We
Sure.
usually got a lot of reports that, hey, that was a fun podcast. Thanks for making it fun instead of an obligation.
Yeah.
So, and we got to drink some really great beers.
I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just show up at my door. Oh boy.
Well, so all right. Before we wrap this thing up here, I know you're a busy guy, and and I appreciate you taking the time to get on the show. What is your opinion so far of Phoenix? Now, is this your first trip to Phoenix?
Oh, I've been to Phoenix a lot, but
Okay.
never for the express purpose of trying beers. And,
Okay.
I came out a lot for spring training games.
Okay.
So that's I mean, this is like a dual passion of mine.
Yeah.
I wish this article existed in a really good form somewhere, but it doesn't. So I'm going to make it.
It will.
And
It will
I'm
soon.
really excited about that. But yeah, so I come out for that, and I used to come out for business every now and again too.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed being here, and I spent most of my time in downtown, and then of course being a Padres fan out in Peoria. So that's
Okay.
that's quite the very different places. Those two places couldn't be much different.
Yeah.
I don't think. But the one thing that I always wanted to try was beer, and I don't know. I had trouble finding it early on, like I guess like 10 years ago was
Sure.
when I was really coming out here on a yearly basis. But last time I was here was 2018. And that was when I first started to see that there were places I could go that were anywhere near anything that I was at.
Yeah.
And now, just there's so much, and it's interesting, and the places are individualistic, and it's not like you're just going from one chain brew pub to the next or something like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's making concerted effort to express themselves through beer,
Yeah.
and they have their own things to offer. I have been very pleased with a lot of the beer I've had. I mean, you sent me to what you think are the best places as well. I mean, you gave me all that information, so
Yeah.
it kind of stacked the deck in my favor. I like to think, but yes, I've so many great breweries and beers that I'll remember, not just because I took notes on them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Anything stand out particularly? Any of the places you want to give specific shout outs to?
Oh God, honestly, I could give shout outs to a lot of places, but everybody likes Wren House.
Yeah.
For a
Yeah,
reason.
for
It's
sure.
really, really good.
Yep.
I thought Goldwater was great. I really enjoyed Tombstone North.
Did you get to go to the gold mine?
I did get to go in the-
Goldwater.
in-
Yeah.
It was cool. It was cool, and I hope that it gets finished up so that people can enjoy it on a regular basis, because they still have plans for that place.
So they haven't opened it back up?
Oh no.
Ah.
But they're working on it. It's just, I think it's more of a long-term plan, because mostly, all of the things they've had to deal with over the past several years have
Yeah.
pushed that to the back.
Well, it was open at one point. It used to be open as like weekends, like evenings on the weekends.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out the best way to use the space, and to, it is kind of an interesting thing too. You got folks like bringing beer down these steep stairs.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
back
steep
up.
stairs, and they got that tight turn.
Yeah,
and
trying to keep track of people's coming and goings. I'm sure it's tough, but they want to actually make improvements down there. They have like a bigger bar.
Okay.
And what they were telling me was really exciting. So I
Nice.
think that it'll be worth any kind of wait that they have to do.
Yeah.
I like that. Oro was really great. I liked BRI a lot too.
Yeah.
They had some really, really cool beers, and I love, like I was saying, the arcade games. I really like that
Yeah,
too.
that's a good draw.
Here where we're at right now, Simple Machine.
Yeah.
Like you said, I can see why it's here local.
Yeah.
It's super tasty, and the people are super fun, even when they're shooting you with
I
guns.
don't know. All of them aren't that cool.
What?
Oh, nothing.
Cool.
You might want to bring body armor when you come here, but it's really cool.
I did get shot with a Nerf gun on my way in. It was unexpected and unappreciated.
Unexpected?
Nah, it was expected and appreciated, honestly.
I mean, somebody got here a little sooner than normal.
Yeah, for sure. At least I had time to guard my eyes on that one.
Well,
no.
and I haven't been every place yet, so there's still several places I'm going to go. So I'm sure I'll have other shout outs here
Heck
within
yeah.
24 hours.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So one thing that stood out of what you told me too was the light lager here, right? You said that's
Yeah.
usually not a style that you go for,
Right.
And you had I think it was the Blueprint light lager.
It was Blueprint, yeah.
Yeah.
Way more character than your standard light lager. And I would say the same thing of somebody I forgot to shout out that I absolutely have to, Pedal House.
right.
Yeah. Lager
Yeah.
game over there is strong.
Yeah.
And yes, what was it? day drinker.
Day drinker, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and of course every lager. The Mexican lager, there's another style I get bored by. It's usually flabby, and
Yeah.
I mean when your main attribute is corn,
Yeah.
like wow, it tastes corny. And I love corn, but it's like okay, that's not exactly the beer drinking experience. I'm more like I'll drink 2 higher alcohol beers that are really complex and interesting
Yeah.
versus 6 Mexican lagers.
Sure.
And they're everywhere where I come from, and all throughout the United States. Everywhere I go, everyone's like, "Yeah, try my Mexican lager."
Yeah.
Great.
There's a lot out here as well.
Yeah,
sure.
as well there should be in this climate.
Yeah.
But his is just, he calls it amber. It's not really. It's lighter than that, and what you're drinking right now, and just perfect. It's perfect. It's got a little bit more to it. The body's perfect. The carbonation's perfect.
Yeah.
And I was hats off to him. But good ales as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doc,
Paddle House
Doc
is-
rules.
Doc is the man. Did you talk to Doc? Is that who?
I
did you
talked
get
to Doc. I
Yeah.
had a doctor's appointment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, Doc's the man. I love Doc. I mean, I love Marshall. Marshall's my man, but I'd say Doc is the best brewer in the state.
That's what everybody's told me. So
Yeah.
I feel good agreeing with you, because literally at every brewery I go to, I say, "Hey, who are you excited about that's not you?"
Yeah.
And everyone almost has mentioned Doc.
Yeah.
And they said and not just because he's so skilled, but also because he's forthcoming with answers to their questions.
Oh, for
They say,
sure.
"Oh, if I have a question, I go to him."
Yep.
And so that's pretty great. We have someone
Yeah.
like that back home called Doug Hasker, and he just happens to be also a lager, our foremost lager expert as well. He works at
Okay.
a place called Puesto in the Mission Valley part of San Diego, but worked for Gordon Biersch for umpteen cajillion years, much like Doc worked for BJ's for umpteen
Yeah.
cajillion years, and then moved into the like full-fledged craft thing at Paddle House. But yeah, I really enjoyed that place too. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked me about that.
Yeah.
About
Nice.
this here too.
And did you go to the Mill Avenue one? The one
Sorry?
in Tempe on
I went
Mill
to
Avenue?
Tempe, yeah.
Okay. And I think that's kind of why it doesn't get the appreciation that it does, because it
Hidden?
doesn't look it's hidden, but then when you get there, it's a big place, and it's a beautiful place, and it's got great food. So it's not one of those. It's not a Wren house that's in a little house.
Oh,
and
right.
It's little.
Like a destination. Like, I
Yeah.
went there for this, and I can't believe it looks like this, but it's cool once I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting dropped off in the Uber at Ren House. I'm like, this is Ren House?
yeah.
Well, it's a house.
It's a
I
house.
walk
It
in,
is a-
and I'm like, well, this is what I expected. As soon as I walked in, I'm like, this place is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool.
And all
spot.
their artwork all over the place.
Yep.
And that bar is pretty tight. And yeah.
Did
the
you
beer,
see
of
the
course, is great.
Arizona the flag on the wall? That always blows me away, because it's American flag, right? But it's 48 states. So there's only
I
48
knew there had
stars.
to be something to that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. There's only
now I
48
know.
stars on there. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for explaining that
Yeah,
to me.
yeah. I always thought that was cool too. I didn't know it for like the first few years, and then I did a podcast with them, and they explained. I'm like, that's really cool. It's so.
And so it
it's-
matches that map they have that's from like
Yeah.
from many years back.
Yep.
Arizona many years back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So many little nuggets that you can find here in
You
Arizona
are
beer.
just an oracle.
They say I wrote the book on it. Me and my business partner. I'll
that
give
was
my
that
buddy.
was sweet.
Well, Brandon, thanks, man. I appreciate you getting on the show.
Yeah.
Anytime you're back in town, I'd love to have you on again.
Sure.
I'm reaching out to you when I go to San Diego
Please.
as well.
And yeah, and anyone out there who's coming to San Diego, at very least, San Diego Beer.news, go there for the list of breweries, because we'll tell you what's actually open and closed. I keep that up to date. Like, if something closes or opens within 24 hours, that's updated. So
Okay.
So you won't roll up on some place that doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
So at least there's that. But send me an email, info@sandiegobeer.news too, if you're coming to town and you need anything, like suggestions. Maybe not like a car, but if
Get
I
an
can,
extra car, Brandon, that I can borrow.
I really do like being a resource. So if I can give you something good from my hometown, I'm very pleased to do it.
And you're a food guy as well, so I'm sure you could give some food suggestions. Is
I
that
can give
right?
some.
Yeah.
I can give some.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
The-
They're all within proximity of a brewery.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Which anybody that's reaching out to you probably wants that as well. Like, give me something close to a brewery, or like I said, my suggestion would be Harlan Bay Park with Rosemary's food truck right there.
Yeah.
So-
See, now I got to go try that.
Yeah, dude. He does like a noodle night. Once in a while, he'll do like curly fries with like a blue cheese. Man, it's really cool. And
You had me at curly fries, and you
I
had
know.
me again at blue cheese.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
For real.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, thanks again, man. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Phoenix. And
sure
once
will.
again, San Diego or SD Beer News.
Nope. San Diego Beer.news
I was way
on
off.
the internet.
Okay.
And then social media is SD Beer News. So you had it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
All right. I was on the right
it's
path.
at SD Beer News or San Diego Beer.news. There you go.
Excellent.
Don't go for the .com. That's
Okay.
the stumbling block for everybody.
Right. All right, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Thank you.
Yep.